Imagine waking up tomorrow morning. The sun is streaming through the blinds, the alarm goes off, and you do what you do every single morning. You reach over, grab your smartphone from the nightstand, and you swipe to wake it up.
Right, the automatic morning routine.
Exactly. But instead of your usual notifications like, there are no emails, no messages from your family, no news alerts, there's just a blank screen. It's
Mm.
total digital silence.
Which, I mean, immediately feels wrong.
Yeah. So you try to load a website and it just times out. You try to check your favorite app and it just spins endlessly. And you might think, okay, well, maybe it's just my router. You reset it, nothing.
So then you probably step outside.
Right. You step outside and your neighbor is just staring at their phone too. And slowly this realization creeps in. It's not your router. The entire digital universe, the internet as we know it, has permanently disappeared overnight.
It's just gone.
Gone. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are unpacking a massive stack of research today, various articles, technical analyses, and this really fascinating primary thought experiment script called The Vanishing Web.
It's really the ultimate modern thought experiment.
It is. And the mission for this deep dive is to map out the exact, granular ripple effects of this monumental change, moving from that jarring chaos of day one to the really profound ways society would be forced to permanently adapt.
And what's fascinating here is that we tend to view the internet as merely a tool, right? We treat it like this highly convenient utility, like electricity or running water.
Yeah, you just turn the tap and it's there.
Exactly. But what this stack of source material reveals is that the internet is actually the central nervous system of our physical world.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and examining what we lose in a digital blackout of this magnitude, it really exposes the invisible, frankly fragile scaffolding that our entire modern existence is built upon.
Okay, let's unpack this by stepping right into that morning after the first 24 hours. The sources paint a picture of immediate, almost disorienting chaos.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you've got millions of people instinctively reaching for devices that are suddenly just useless bricks, the psychological withdrawal alone would be staggering.
Yeah, those phantom vibrations in your pocket.
Right. Or the instinct to settle a trivial argument by just, Googling it and then realizing you literally can't.
It's a total paradigm shift.
But I do have to push back a little bit on the sort of apocalyptic tone of that initial panic. I mean, for the average person, if we just take away the screens, isn't this really just a massive inconvenience?
I mean,
Well, it's sort of like a frustrating, forced digital snow day. Like, oh, well, I can't check my email. Guess I'll read a book.
I get that. It is deeply tempting to romanticize it that way, right? Like
Yeah.
a forced digital detox where we all just go for a walk.
Yeah, exactly.
But if we look at the macro level mechanics in the research, that illusion of a snow day shatters by about 9 a.m.
Wait, really? That fast?
Oh yeah, it goes far beyond you getting lost because your GPS app won't load. And actually, let's look at that GPS example for a second. The satellites are still up there in orbit, functioning perfectly.
Right, because they don't need the web.
Exactly.
Hmm.
But your phone uses assisted GPS, which requires cell towers and internet data to quickly lock onto your location and actually stream the map tiles to your screen.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. So without the internet, the map itself simply doesn't exist on your phone.
It's just a blank grid. Now, multiply that blindness by every system on Earth. The global financial system, for instance, it doesn't just slow down, it ceases to exist.
Okay, wait, let me challenge that. Surely Wall Street and massive global banks have internal intranets, right?
You'd think so.
Yeah, I mean, they must have dedicated, secure fiber optic cables running between their major servers that aren't reliant on, the public Wi-Fi we use at a coffee shop.
Right.
So why wouldn't those localized physical networks keep the core of the market humming along?
Well, it's a totally logical assumption, but it fundamentally misunderstands modern finance. Yes, banks have private cables, but those networks still rely on global DNS, domain names system routers, to tell the data where to go.
Oh, so the routing itself breaks down.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And more importantly, modern trading isn't a human looking at a screen anymore. It's algorithmic.
Right, the high-frequency trading bots.
High-frequency trading involves supercomputers making millions of trades in fractions of a second based on this constant, massive fire hose of global data inputs.
Like what kind of inputs?
Well, news feeds, social sentiment, global supply chain metrics. The moment the global data flow stops, those algorithms go completely blind.
Oh, wow. So they just freeze.
Without the internet, the liquidity of the entire global economy vanishes instantly.
Yeah.
The market doesn't crash. It just evaporates.
That is terrifying. So if the financial algorithms are blind, the gears of modern civilization literally just lock up.
Precisely. And it doesn't stop at finance either. News outlets lose their wire services. They have no mechanisms to gather information globally or distribute it locally.
Because the wire services are all internet-based feeds.
Exactly. The synchronization of our world, the very pulse that keeps Tokyo, London, and New York ticking at the exact same rhythm,
Yeah.
it's severed in a matter of seconds.
Man. So if the financial markets evaporating is the macro crisis, the ripple effect hits the ground incredibly fast. And that brings us to the systems keeping us physically alive.
Yeah, this is where it gets really dark.
It does. The source material dives deep into the healthcare impact, and it is genuinely chilling. Hospitals suddenly lose access to critical digital health records.
Overnight.
And emergency services struggle to route ambulances without internet-based dispatch systems.
And we have to ask why this is so immediately devastating.
Right.
Why does a physical hospital full of highly trained doctors in physical medicine grind to a halt just because a server in another state went down?
Right, because the medicine is right there in the building.
Exactly. It's because we haven't just digitized our administrative tasks. We have entirely eliminated our analog backups.
We just threw out the paper files.
Yeah. Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
We systematically dismantled the physical infrastructure to make way for the digital one, operating on this absolute assumption that the digital framework would just be there forever.
And it's not even just the historical data, like the fact that a doctor doesn't know a patient's allergies or past treatments. Think about the physical equipment in the room.
Oh, the hardware. Yes.
Yeah, I was reading a piece of the research that pointed out modern MRI machines or advanced diagnostic tools literally won't boot up without pinging a cloud server for software licensing or updates.
That is a perfect example.
It's basically a massive multi-million-dollar paperweight sitting in a hospital room.
The hardware is held completely hostage by the missing software link. And consider pharmacies, too. E-prescribing is the standard now.
Oh, right. Nobody brings in a paper slip anymore.
Hardly ever. So if a diabetic patient needs insulin, the pharmacist literally cannot verify the prescription or process the insurance claim because all those actions require a real-time internet handshake.
So the medication is physically sitting on the shelf, like 3 feet away from the patient who needs it.
But the transactional bridge to hand it over is just gone.
That's crazy. Losing the internet in this scenario isn't like a library burning down where you just lose the books. It's like gravity suddenly turning off for logistics.
You like that analogy?
Yeah, because the objects are still there, the people are still there, the trucks are still there, but the fundamental force that tells them where to go and who owns what has completely vanished.
That is exactly the mechanism of failure. And if hospitals can't function because their data is gone, well, that exact same paralysis hits the supply chains that bring those hospitals their essential supplies.
Which means almost overnight, our entire global economy is forced into this brutal reset. The sources detail this massive involuntary pivot to local.
Yes, e-commerce collapses instantly.
Right, you can't just click a button and expect a package tomorrow, but the mechanics of why the physical supply chain breaks down are fascinating. It's not that the cargo ships sink.
Right, the ships are still massive floating warehouses. They're still out there.
Yeah.
But think about a modern shipping port. You have thousands of these identical steel containers stacked up.
Right.
And the automated cranes that move them, they operate on API calls, which is essentially software talking to software over the internet, telling the crane that container X goes to truck Y.
Oh, man. So without the web, you just have a mountain of steel and no index to tell you what's inside or where it belongs.
Exactly. The global supply chain relies on absolute real-time visibility.
Mm-hmm.
Take away that visibility, and the cargo just sits offshore or it's rotting on the docks.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. We can't even buy local supplies easily because digital payment networks like credit cards, Apple Pay, even traditional bank systems are completely frozen.
Because they all need the web to verify funds.
Exactly, which means society is instantly thrust backward into the Stone Age of commerce.
Barter.
Yeah, physical trade. And we don't just sit down and give up, of course. Necessity forces innovation, but the innovation is entirely backward-looking. We see the rise of physical local markets and community-supported agriculture.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, what we are witnessing in this scenario is the death of the global economy, forcing a sudden, dramatic rebirth of the local economy.
Right.
And with that comes massive friction. I mean, bartering isn't simple. How do you value a carton of fresh eggs against a course of antibiotics or a tank of gasoline?
It's entirely subjective.
Exactly. Innovation, at least in the modern technological sense of writing code or developing apps, slows down to an absolute crawl. But it triggers a fascinating revival of old-world skills and crafts.
The whole value system of society completely flips. The skills we currently prize, coding, digital marketing, remote project management, they become totally useless overnight.
You can't code a vegetable.
Right. Suddenly, the loss of modern innovation forces us to reclaim practical survival skills most of us have outsourced or just entirely forgotten.
Oh, absolutely.
The ability to grow food, to preserve it without refrigeration, to repair a mechanical tool, or purify water. The most important person in your community isn't the software engineer anymore.
Not at all.
It's the person down the street who knows how to cultivate a garden, or the mechanic who knows how to fix a carburetor that doesn't rely on a microchip.
The shift in human capital would be jarring. And this contraction from global to local isn't just about how we get our food or how we trade goods. It mirrors exactly what happens to our social structures and our perception of reality.
Right, because just as the economy shrinks down to your immediate geographic area, our social lives undergo the exact same forced transformation.
Social media is gone.
Poof. The endless scroll of global outrage or viral videos simply vanishes. We are forced to revert to older methods of communication.
Landlines, if they still have copper wire infrastructure.
Exactly, big if. Handwritten letters, and most importantly, face-to-face conversations. Communities turn deeply inward, and the research suggests this leads to a powerful resurgence of hyperlocal culture.
Which is really interesting.
Yeah, you actually get to know your neighbors because they are literally the only people you can talk to.
Which sounds incredibly idyllic on the surface, right? A return to the front porch, to deep community bonds.
Like the good old days.
Exactly. We have to look critically at the dark side of this social shift that the source material highlights. With the total loss of global awareness comes a massive, terrifying increase in confusion, paranoia, and misinformation.
Oh, I can totally see that. Because how do you verify anything?
You can't.
Right. If someone runs into town and says there's a massive food riot happening in the next city over, or that the water supply has been poisoned, you can't just check a trusted news site or look at live video feeds to confirm it.
Exactly. You are entirely dependent on word of mouth, on what someone else heard from someone else who supposedly saw it.
Just massive games of telephone.
Yes. We lose the shared, verifiable reality that we've spent decades building. Communities might become closer knit out of sheer necessity, but they also become profoundly isolated in information silos.
That's a scary thought.
The truth becomes incredibly localized, highly subjective, and deeply vulnerable to whoever just has the loudest voice in the town square.
So what does this all mean? I want you listening to this right now to really think about this trade-off for a second. Are we better off knowing our neighbors deeply, relying on each other, and having these rich, face-to-face local cultures, even if the cost is being completely in the dark and potentially paranoid about the rest of the world?
It's a huge question.
It is. We gain immediate, tangible human connection, but we lose the collective knowledge of the human race. It's a profound, forced compromise.
It is a compromise born out of sheer crisis. But as the source texts explore, humanity is remarkably adaptable.
We usually figure it out eventually.
We do. We wouldn't just stay in a state of chaotic isolation forever.
Yeah.
There was a long-term horizon in this scenario where society finds a new, localized equilibrium. The dust eventually settles.
Let's explore that long-term adaptation. How do we actually rebuild when the magic internet dust is gone forever? Over time, the sources indicate that older forms of communication are resurrected and hastily scaled up.
Right.
Like radio makes a massive comeback.
But not just listening to music. We're talking about amateur ham radio operators, essentially becoming the new internet service providers.
Wow.
Forming the backbone of long-distance communication. People would retrofit old technology to create localized mesh networks.
What's a mesh network exactly?
It's basically using radio frequencies to transmit small packets of essential data-like text-based emergency bulletins from town to town, bouncing the signal along.
Okay. So physical courier systems would probably come back too, right? Like
Yeah.
a modern Pony Express using bicycles and surviving vehicles.
Exactly, to move actual physical documents and goods across regions, because you can't send an email attachment anymore.
Right. And on a deeply individual level, the research points to a massive psychological reset.
Oh, this is a huge piece of it.
Yeah, the initial withdrawal fades, and without the constant demanding pull of the screen, people rediscover an entirely different pace of life. We return to simpler analog pleasures.
Things we've kind of forgotten how to do.
Exactly. Reading physical books, playing traditional board games, learning to play a musical instrument, or just sitting in silence without the urge to check a notification.
Just being present.
Yeah. The constant hum of background anxiety that defines so much of modern life might actually dissipate.
And this raises an important question about human resilience and structural planning. The source notes that over the years following this blackout, governments and communities would inevitably begin developing decentralized, localized networks for essential services.
Instead of one big global web.
Exactly. The drive to build these decentralized systems shows that humanity would have recognized the fatal flaw in our current architecture. We learned the hard lesson. The vulnerability of our society was simply too great.
We optimized for extreme efficiency and speed, but we completely sacrificed resilience. We built this beautiful, towering skyscraper of a society, but we built the entire foundation on a single, invisible wire.
We really did. We traded robust redundancy for digital convenience. But the profound takeaway from analyzing the vanishing web isn't just an infrastructure warning.
Right, it goes deeper than that.
It's fundamentally about the human element. The text highlights that stepping away from our screens, even in this catastrophic, involuntary scenario, ultimately forces us to be present in our physical reality
Like they struggle with now.
immensely. It leads to deeper, more authentic human connections and a grounded awareness of our immediate environment, things we have arguably been neglecting for a very long time.
It really is a powerful thought experiment. To synthesize everything we've unpacked from the research today, the sudden disappearance of the internet wouldn't just be a technological glitch, it would be a systemic shock on a level humanity has never experienced.
Unprecedented.
Truly. We're talking about the immediate evaporation of global financial markets, the paralysis of supply chains, and absolute life-threatening chaos in our healthcare systems simply because we threw away our analog backups.
It forces us to confront the fact that we don't just use the internet. We live inside it.
Yet, out of that terrifying shock comes a remarkable forced opportunity. A chance to strip away the constant digital noise and reflect on what actually sustains us.
Eve essentials.
Exactly. It pushes society back to local markets, to valuing tangible skills over abstract data, to face-to-face interaction, and to a much slower, deliberate way of navigating the world.
It leaves only the tangible reality of the people, the physical resources, and the community immediately around us. The artificial layers are just gone.
And this is where we bring it all back to you. You don't actually need to wait for the global internet infrastructure to collapse to start experiencing some of these benefits.
Thankfully, no.
Right. The source material is a hypothetical doomsday scenario, but the lessons are completely applicable to your life right now. You can choose to intentionally step away from the screen today.
Small steps.
Yeah. You can choose to cultivate those analog skills, whether that's planting a small garden, learning to repair something in your house, or simply having an uninterrupted face-to-face conversation with your neighbor without glancing at your phone.
We can choose to build a little bit of that personal and community resilience voluntarily rather than waiting for a crisis to force our hand.
Exactly. Which brings me to a final, lingering thought for you to mull over as we wrap up. The research pointed out that after the crash, the survivors would painstakingly build decentralized networks and localized backups to prevent ever relying on a single infrastructure again.
To never make the same mistake twice.
Right. So, looking closely at your own daily life, if relying on a single digital infrastructure is a critical existential vulnerability for modern society, what is the single point of failure in your own life right now? If the screen goes dark tomorrow, what kind of analog offline backups can you start building today?